Governance consultant. Good morning and good to have you.
Morning.
Karibu sana. To my extreme left, we have Crispus Yankem, who's a communication consultant. Good morning and good to have you too.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. And last but not least, we have David Ohito, digital editor with the Standard Group. And good to have you too, David. Karibu sana. This is the newsroom, and this is where we look at some of the stories that have been making headlines, how they have been covered, and possibly if we have done justice to them, and how we have done. So let me start off with, for today, for once, let's start off with not ourselves, but looking at our neighboring country, South Sudan. And I know that will probably give us a reflection of where we want to go. But let me start with you, Crispus, in terms of what is happening in Sudan and the coverage that has been there. Is this a war that possibly we did not foresee and therefore did not mention it before?
Well, thank you, Michael. I think, first of all, I want to commend KTN, especially KTN News. I think it's been 1 year of serious work, and watching your bulletins, I think we're impressed. You've actually proven that we have an opportunity in this country that is yet to be tapped. You can be the CNN of Africa. But having said that, let me go straight to your question, whether actually you foresaw the situation in South Sudan or not. I think it's very unfortunate, to say the least, looking at the unfolding events in South Sudan, particularly in the last 1 week. This is something that we did not actually want to see again, given the history of that country, because we remember 2005, when the founding father of that nation passed on. Everybody thought, meaning that Kenyans thought actually that was the beginning of the end of the turmoil that has been South Sudan. Remember, this is a country that has a long history. It has never known peace for quite a long time. So looking at the unfolding events, one is left to wonder where the African voices are. I think 200 or 300 people being killed within the last 1 week, that speaks volumes about the African leadership. It is interesting to see that it is only our own president who has spoken about it, but we want to see what AU has to say. We want to bring in other voices, particularly the leadership of AU. This is the time actually to talk about the unfolding events of South Sudan and find lasting solution. This lasting solution, what exactly will it take? Will it take the exit of Riek Machar? Will it take the exit of Salva Kiir? Because in my own humble opinion, they are the problem.
Okay, the two of them fighting against each other. Let me come to you, David Ohito, and since we're in the newsroom, I've had some newsrooms look at it from the angle of the East African community, which of course one would wonder if at all they have a mandate in regards to now Southern Sudan. Your comments on that?
Oh, well, I want to say from the outset that I think South Sudan case is a tragedy, another one for Africa, another fresh chapter that we are writing wrongly about this. And I think the mere fact that we couldn't get our crews to the ground to really prime the situation has really made us, watch it from afar. We haven't done justice to it. If you look at it from the point of view that Kenya is one of the biggest trade partners of South Sudan. And you saw the statements from Kenya Airways, you saw the statements from Kenya Commercial Bank, the biggest bank in South Sudan, and that we have not managed to profile even a single story of Kenyans who are suffering in South Sudan. There were reports last night of the gentleman who was shot and injured. There are also reports of critical supplies running out of stocks. And if you ask me, we haven't done justice to that story.
That could be an issue of security and access, because I remember, especially like here at KTN News, we were running up and down trying to even get Kenyans who are within Sudan and Juba in particular. But first of all, there was an issue with the access of network telephony, so to even just get them. Then secondly, there's a safety aspect. To even try and fly in there, of course, would have been very risky. KQ had even cancelled their flights.
which makes it even more complex because at our level of operation in this modern day and era, when telephone is down, there must be alternative ways of communication. We've seen the international partners, because maybe of their financial muscle and networks, they've been churning out stories from within, the tanks that were firing and killing people. We've seen gory images from the scenes of the dead. The beauty about the latest flare-up is that only soldiers died, very few civilian casualties. If you ask me, that is the only thing that is good about that story. But it's a tragedy. And I warned you before that I don't think even focusing on South Sudan is more important, because the way Kenya is riding itself now, I think we're only 12 months away from South Sudan.
I think, Michael, for once, I think I would like to
Can we hear from her first before I come to you? Because we'll come to Kenya, and I want us just to mention on Southern Sudan, then come to Kenya, because I think that's also got a lot that we need to talk about. Just to hear from you regarding Southern Sudan.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I think I agree with David, but I want to look at it as from a parent-child point of view. We have everything to do with South Sudan. South Sudan is our baby. It will never have. When you say
our baby, you mean Kenya?
Yeah, as Kenya, South Sudan is our baby. So it's not over with South Sudan until everything else is over. The moment we have two centers of power, and in this case, I mean, you have two leaders who are all controlling instrument of powers. Because when you have your commanders, you're having armed forces under your command, have two centers of power. It does not matter. Whatever discussion, whatever negotiation will be there. I think Kenya needs to come out very strongly, Kenya especially as a government, and flex its muscle. And in this negotiation, they need just to hit the nail on the heads of these two guys and say, one of you has to come down. I mean, there has to be only one centers of power. There has to be only one armed forces and one commandant. If not that, we will keep on singing about South Sudan. They will sign deals, but each one of them has instruments, can flex those instruments anytime he feels like I need to be the one.
Okay, so two centers of power, of course, being a danger there. Crispus.
Very quickly, to how the media has covered the unfolding events in South Sudan. For once, I think I want to disagree with my brother Ohito, because the media has stayed the course, particularly on this story. I don't know how he got to know about the circumstances under which KCB is. I don't know how he got to know that KQ has suspended its flight to that operations, if you may, to South Sudan. I think it was through the media, and we must give credit to where it's due. But going forward, the missing link in this particular story has actually the tracing of the history, because we've had a lot of MOUs, we've had a lot of peace deals signed. The latest one was actually in 2015, last year, and it is very unfortunate that we are where we are at the moment. So I think that is the aspect that ought to be brought by the media and highlighted. The other one will be the families of the high and mighty generals in South Sudan are spending their time here in the country. We are giving them, pampering them. Most of them actually live in Lavington. It is time that we started actually bringing them to question and asking the generals, the fathers, Riek Machar, the Salva Kiir, I know his family lives in Nairobi. Would they actually want to see South Sudan going down the drain? I think the media has done pretty well, again, because I saw a lot of interviews with the representatives of the two sides. But I think, like what I've said, we need now to start questioning and looking at the circumstances that drive animosity in South Sudan. People are talking of the huge deposits of oil, but is it actually the issue? What is the secret hand behind the violence in South Sudan?
All right, David Ohito, maybe in concluding this issue of South Sudan in regards to whether we've done what we can, especially given that some of these generals, their families are actually in Kenya.
Well, that's besides the story. Nobody needs to die. And what we need is just peace around us. When you have a case scenario like Somalia in turmoil, Sudan now in turmoil, who knows next? And I said Kenya could just be the next in terms of violence in the Horn of Africa.
Okay, you've said that twice, Ohito, when you talk about Kenya being the next and the fact that we've only got slightly maybe over a year before we go to the general elections. What is it that you foresee? What is it that we should be concentrating on?
When people start seeing a nation through the tribal prism, the lenses that we wear are tribal, and people, thinking it's our time to grab, it's our time to, take all the positions of power, then we lose the plot. And that is the replica of what we are seeing today in our country. Nobody wants to see us as a nation of 42 tribes, but as our turn to eat, we have to grab all the seats. All the cabinet appointments have to be shared between 2 tribes. I mean, that is not where we should go.
All right.
Yeah,
Susan?
I just want to make a comment on the media and how effectively they covered the story in South Sudan. And I think when you're talking about the media, we have to be very clear. Is it the social media? Is it the mainstream media? In as far as the social media is concerned, I think they were the ones who are breaking the news. But in as far as the mainstream media was doing, and this is why now the mainstream media, you need to do a little bit of some analysis, because had you been really real about this, what is going on in South Sudan, given us the historical analysis, we could have foreseen what was happening there. Like I've said, South Sudan is our baby. We will never be at peace if they're not at peace.
So in other words, what you're saying is that mainstream media should have been on this, giving us the history before even this happened?
Yes, and given that we are major investors in South Sudan, we need to have high intelligence on the ground. We need to keep on updating ourselves. We cannot, just like in Britain or in other Western countries also who give us aid and what. I mean, they are always there on the ground, finding out, scanning the environment, the political environment, the economic environment. I don't know how much of mainstream media, we see that from mainstream media in Kenya. I mean, for us, we're also trying to compete with the social media. You also want to break news. Time of breaking news are long gone. Now we need analytical or some sort of in-depth analysis of what is happening. And that's how probably now people can stay glued on this mainstream media, because you break news after social media.
Social media, of course, has taken that niche, and well, for us, it's to verify and ensure that it's credible. But
and another thing about the families which are living here, and I go back and saying, I think we can blame Kenya, because you have these families that are enjoying all the vagaries of powers. Their children are here, they are investing here, and yet back in their home, it's burning. We need to flex. We need to deny them all these privileges. We need to tell them.
But on what grounds do you deny them?
I mean, why?
On what grounds do you stop them from coming in?
You can just stop them. You can say we've taken a lead role in this thing, and unless you people sit down and bring sanity within your troops, then don't come to Kenya.
I'm not sure that is possible even legally. But anyway, coming to you, Crispus, and let's come back to Kenya now, away from Southern Sudan. We do know that there has been wars, especially in the ODM party. There had been predictions that Ababu Namwamba was going to resign. He resigned, although according to the party, they say they have not received an official resignation letter, and as a result, they are mum about that. What do you foresee happening with one of the biggest opposition parties?
Well, I think it is debatable whether ODM is still the biggest political party or not. But I think the Ababu Namwamba narrative is still developing. As far as I'm concerned, it is nothing new. This was expected within our political parties. I think Ababu Namwamba has been speaking about being as a general in the CORD, or ODM, if you may, specifically. He's been a general with a gun without a bullet. It is laughable for you to think like that, because in the military parlance, or speaking in the military language, I think before you become a general, they have weighed you. They have actually put you on the weighing scale and determined that you are fit to become a general. Then you are given the opportunity to be in charge of the armory. When you're in charge of the armory, what is expected of you is to distribute the guns. When you are distributing the guns, you check whether they are loaded or not. It is very unfortunate that Ababu Namwamba did not check whether his gun was loaded or not. But that besides the point. It is interesting to see the latest turn of events, because looking at the unfolding scenarios within ODM, it leaves me to wonder whether actually Raila Odinga is still expecting to beat Uhuru Kenyatta, especially given the latest opinion polls that have been flashed out within the media every time. You saw the last one by Ipsos Synovate actually put Uhuru Kenyatta 60% compared to a paltry score by Raila Odinga. But specifically for purposes of this issue, I would like to say that I don't know, it is very unfortunate that Raila Odinga is here to learn the Machiavelli style of politics. Because when you look at the way Machiavelli was conducting himself, he was kicking off the ladder after becoming the king. So Raila Odinga must master that. He should master that. But because he hasn't mastered, looking at the history, because after the 2002 election, you remember he kicked off the ladder, which was the retired president, Mwai Kibaki. After the 2007 election, again, he kicked off the ladder in the name of William Ruto. Prior to the 2013 election, he kicked off the ladder in the name of Musalia Mudavadi. Now, again, he's kicked off the ladder in the name of Ababu Namwamba. That's why I'm questioning his ability and political philosophy and political strategy. It is time that he mastered the plan.
Okay.
And let me just finish. Okay. By mastering the plan, right now, the honorable thing for the Right Honorable Raila Odinga to do is actually to exit the stage, fish somebody who can give a run for Uhuruto, a run for their money. And that person can only come from the Rift Valley. Okay,
I can see Susan disagreeing and we're raring to go. But Susan, I don't know what your comments are regarding that.
Are we discussing the party or are we discussing
No, we're discussing the politics and would like to know whether we have given an in-depth analysis of what is going on and also as we project towards 2017.
Yeah, but first of all, let me just make a comment at what Crispus was saying. And that's where I think also, I'm glad because he says a communication consultant. I think that's where the media also gets it wrong. Is the issue about ODM as an institution or is the issue about Raila Odinga? Because to me, those are two separate issues.
Are they inseparable though?
Yes, to me, they're two separate issues in view of how even the media has come out. And it's like Raila is finished, ODM is finished, Raila is finished because now Ababu is going. I come from Western Province and I can tell you, if we are looking at it from a point of view, as a political parties, there's nothing new that is happening. Because from a political party, if you look how many seats did ODM gather, governorship ODM only got 2. That was Kakamega and Oparanya, and that was Busia and Ojamong. And the rest went to different parties. Now, narrowing down to Busia, where Ababu Namwamba comes from, you see, out of the 7 sub-counties or 7 constituencies, ODM only managed to get 3. And this one happened because people appreciate that indeed there are challenges within ODMs. However, when it comes now discussing Raila, that's a totally different story. And that's why I think I do not really buy into the trending stories that Raila is losing it just because Ababu Namwamba is going. Because unlike he's given us a chronology of events from Moi, and even as you say that, I always tell people just appreciate the role that also Raila has played in bringing about, even in reforming these so-called political parties. Because look, for Ruto's case, it's totally different from Ababu Namwamba's case, because during that time, Raila falling out with the Rift Valley people or the Kalenjins people was also not majorly because of Ruto. We had the issue of Mau evictions. We had the issue of also Moi being there. Remember, Moi started reincarnating himself after the NAC government started goofing, and people said even if Moi was to come, people will still elect Moi. But then, by the time they were falling out with Ruto, by that time, the people themselves on the ground actually had fallen out with the leadership of ODM. In this case round in Western Province, where we're having Ababu Namwamba, people are solidly I'll call it in Raila because people like discuss in Raila as opposed to the Ruto. Now, it may happen, but it will take some really
from
hard
your analysis, the narrative that has been sold so far is that ODM is in trouble, or there is trouble in the camp because Ababu Namwamba is exiting, and not just Ababu Namwamba, there are several. Do you think we've concentrated too much on Ababu Namwamba as opposed to looking at the whole structure of the party?
Yeah, I think that's the mistake, because you're focusing so much on the leadership, Raila, the personalities, Raila and Namwamba, as opposed to the institution itself. Because as far as the institution is concerned, that will not be news. As far as Raila is concerned, it's also something else that the media is not digging.
All right, let me come to you, David Ohito. You're our digital editor. Have we put too much emphasis on those who are resigning? Yet, according to what she says, it's nothing new. And do we really have parties that have an institution and a structure that we can ignore the leader away from the actual structure of the party?
I must admit I'm a very disappointed journalist and editor, which is why I want to quit the newsroom.
Is that an official announcement that you're quitting the newsroom?
Ababu Namwamba is lightweight political phenomenon. If you ask me, in this modern day and era, I would have expected somebody like Ababu Namwamba, in the information era, to be a more eloquent debater with facts and figures than Masinde Muliro before him, than Mudi Awori before him, than Musalia Mudavadi, than George Captain. But the Ababu Namwamba I have seen does not make any difference in the flow of the National Assembly. I don't remember him with a single motion that Ababu can be identified with. I don't remember Ababu Namwamba as a cabinet secretary with any policy decision that he made. I don't remember Ababu Namwamba even in Budalangi for whatever reason. For reasons that I can't explain, that we are fixated with a man who goes to a rally with a Mwiko in an era when, if he wants to form a Mwiko party, he should declare, And we know how Mwiko has been related with Western politics. We saw Martin Shikuku before him. And the Ugali saga. You don't tell me I'm going to finish Raila with a Mwiko. No, we've got it dead wrong. I can assure you, you will see the people. I've counted people in the Ababu's rally. Wait for Raila's rally in Western Province.
Which is going to be taking off very soon.
I can assure you, he is dead meat politically.
So, coming back to the newsroom, are we giving the right narrative? It looks like, from what we're painting, from what we're saying, it looks like Ababu Namwamba literally is almost carrying half the party.
I can assure you, I have covered politics for 21 uninterrupted years. I have covered Raila Odinga for a similar margin. You do not finish Raila with wielding a Mwiko in a political rally. No. You have jailed. We have jailed. Even those who jailed him for 8.5 years came back and said, Guy, we need you. So and I tell you, he's still the fulcrum of Kenya's politics. It doesn't matter whether he is finished or whether DM is not there. But the fact that Raila Odinga will be the key political factor in 2017 general election is not in dispute, which is why the president talks about ODM and Raila more than his own party. Deputy president talks about Raila and ODM more and the CORD more than their own parties, and which is why they are announcing that they have candidates lined up until 2032. There has been no nomination, and there's nobody challenging that in the media that they have candidates lined up until 2032, yet there's no nomination. But when it's an ODM nomination, it's a critical issue. And finally, I want to say, no media house, TV, newspaper can survive without covering Raila Odinga anyway.
Crispus.
Let me just quickly react to what he said. No media house can survive without Raila Odinga. It is because of the money, the economic aspect of it, because Raila sells. He still...
but he sells for a reason. He sells because...
He sells actually because of the controversies. But very quickly, I think the fact that Raila has decided to camp in Western Kenya speaks volumes about the ability of Ababu Namwamba. Because if at all he wasn't a factor, Raila would not be spending other 2 weeks in Western trying to galvanize his unyielding political base. But that's beside the point. The point that I would quickly like to make is one for the media. I think I'm disappointed in the media on this particular one because, like I said initially, these events are expected. Not just in Kenya, any other country, even in developed democracies, whenever elections, a country is approaching elections, there is bound to be that political shifting of the ground within political parties. That is what happened in 2002 in this country. That is what happened in 2007 in this particular country. And that is what happened in 2013 in this particular country. The fact is that the reason as to why I'm saying that I'm disappointed with the media is because of the premium that has been placed on political shifting, the political immaturity, especially in ODM, because we haven't seen a lot of that in TNA or URP or the expected political formation, Jubilee Party.
When you say we've not seen a lot of that, do you mean that the media has not covered it, or there is no immaturity in Jubilee?
Basically, that's what I'm saying. You've decided that everything ODM is breaking news. When Ababu Namwamba wields his mwiko somewhere in Western Kenya, it becomes breaking news. When Paul Otoma dances to some funny tunes, it becomes breaking news. When Sirisia Member of Parliament sneezes somewhere in Bungoma, it is breaking news. We've actually simplified this thing called breaking news until we no longer know what breaking news is all about.
Let me come to you, Susan, and this is in regards to, let's talk about leadership, because that's what is being challenged in the ODM party as having, failed in one way or the other, and that's the reason why those who are leaving claim that they are leaving. Have we looked at the structures of the party? Have we broken down what really the party stands for and the ideologies, and as a result, reflect it? And like David Ohito is saying, if we look at the performance record of Ababu Namwamba, you really have to scratch hard to see anything that he has tabled in Parliament that is worth, repeating. So as a result, does he really wield as much power as we want to make it look?
Well, for once, I'll say he's not my member of Parliament because I come from Funyala constituency, so I will not really know much about how he's performing in Budalangi. However, I just want to go to the question of the party as institution and why I feel the media is not doing a lot. And I think this is because probably we also lack some political analytical skills. I think it's high time that we also, the media houses, the employers try to take the journalists to maybe to a refresher course on just political communication and analysis.
But we have the likes of David Ohito, who is experienced.
He's already saying now, at where he's serving, probably, he may not be able to wield much. That's why I think he's quitting. But let me go back. ODM is making news because it has a lot of events. One, I think it's the only party in the last probably 5 years, 7 years that has really taken it there to the grassroots and tried to do grassroots election when other parties are folding. I've never had grassroots elections in TNA. I've never had grassroots elections in URP. You never had all that happening.
Not even bedroom elections. Why are you calling grassroots?
So what they do, they fear. So ODM, and believe me, in any party where you have competitive political cadreship, you are likely to see all this happening. And it's much even more difficult when you're holding grassroots election as opposed to where you sit in the boardroom and you negotiate and say, take this, take this. Some other parties are shying off. And the reason why we are criticizing the media is that whenever you say that ODM house is burning, you're measuring it against which party? Just last year, we had a revolt in Rift Valley when you had Kina Alfred Kiter coming up and criticizing the leadership. So now the media cannot even go back and try and bridge that history and put it together and say, even last year we had issues happening in Jubilee. We've had, in recent past, we had Sonko complaining he's uncomfortable, and we know very well if there was any leader who was elected in this country, aside from the president, who was able to marshal a lot of numbers in Nairobi, Sonko. I mean, why is the media quiet about that? So the moment you're talking about Ababu Namwamba, I mean, how many votes are in Budalang? I would say about maybe
20,000.
No, maybe let's give it 50,000 because
be generous.
Be generous. How about Sonko, who had almost over 700,000
Okay.
votes. So what I'm saying, I think to me, the media should not divorce themselves from reality, especially the mainstream media. You should strive as much as possible to be a voice of reason by digging into the history, because that's the only way that will make an edge above the social media. Otherwise, you're just like social media.
Okay. David Ohito, you've mentioned that you're actually quitting out of frustration because somehow we are not able to put these facts on the table. What is it that you'd have wanted done differently?
We must remain factual as media. If media cannot be the conscience of society, then we live for no reason. We have critical issues we should address as a country. When I read the headline today and I see people who have applied for the position of Chief Justice, and we know so well the brains within our society, when people are not applying for those jobs, there's a problem, and a big one, with the society. When people you expected to have risen to those critical decision-making institutions are withdrawing, there is a problem with society. It means we are having lesser quality every day going forward. We are having lesser quality journalists every day in the newsrooms. We are not interrogating things. We are being muzzled day by day. We are not being critical and adding value to society. Then I think it's time just to pack and go. Soon, media houses will be like churches in Kenya, who nobody listens to, apart from going there on Sunday.
But now, when the likes of you, David Ohito, who have the experience and the time and the knowledge and institutional and history and memory, quit, isn't that now literally throwing us back to where we should not be going?
We are increasingly being manipulated by political neophytes. I cannot stand a newsroom that I will be reading headlines of Babu Namwamba. No, not me. I'm better than that. I'm better off teaching people. I'm very glad Susan Mangeni here, this is my former student, my intern. At least she's added value to this show. If I can go and teach students, the better.
Okay. Crispus, have we completely lost the plot?
You know, I don't know what to make of my brother Ohito's sentiments, because I still want to believe that he's not serious about his quitting thing. But if at all he's quitting, then I think there is reason to worry.
Whether he's quitting or not, it's evident that there's frustration.
Yes.
And that frustration is because as media, somehow we seem to be chasing the wind as opposed to sticking to the real issues.
You see, you don't quit by virtue of you failing to instill change. You remain in there and ensure that you are fighting for that change.
David
that you
Cameron
like to see.
quit.
No. Wait. I'm coming to that. To that. But he's still going to be part of the change. David Ohito, I want to believe that you've nurtured enough people who can take over from you. Like my sister said, it is time that even those senior journalists, particularly journalists who have been covering political issues, nurture these young upcoming journalists in order for them to be able to pass on the baton to them. Because looking at the unfolding political events in the country, it requires a lot of institutional memory. That is what is lacking in our media houses.
Yes, true.
That is something that we must ensure that it remains. We must ensure that we fight for it if at all we want to cover credible issues, particularly around politics. This is going to be a very foolish political situation or political environment that we are approaching. Looking at the 2013, the 202, when everybody was so optimistic about change, what has changed? These are the critical questions that we must now start bringing to the table and start asking, why is Ohito speaking the way he's speaking? Why is he saying that credible brains are not applying for particular positions that can bring change to our society? The other thing is, the media has got a very big role to play in terms of shaping the political democracy of our country. One of them is ensure that you focus on issues other than individuals. The Ababu Namwamba thing is a very unfortunate thing because it is a running story that has got no substance at all. That is what we need to move away from and ensure that we're inculcating the culture that we want to see in our political system.
Susan, let's move forward, looking at time and seeing that we are almost winding up. What is it that we should be concentrating on now, given that 2017 is hardly just over a year away, and we do remember none of us would want to go back to 2007, 2008 post-election violence. However, we seem to forget what happened and concentrate again on individuals. I remember watching a clip, and I think it was Alado who was saying that if it is a Luya, we have a Luya in Nairobi. We go back to, again, tribal, politics, and literally just putting ourselves in tribal cocoons. What should we be highlighting to ensure that we avoid 2007, 2008?
I think what the media plays a great role, especially in shaping the agenda. For instance, if you do not want this story to trend, yeah, let me just give an example. And Ababu Namwambi is my brother and a friend of mine. If you wanted people to focus on certain issues, like so many issues have happened in this country. We've had the Israeli Prime Minister visiting, we had Modi visiting. There's so many goodies that people should be discussing. And you decide not to make the politics banner headline. I mean, you won't have...
We can make that call.
Yeah, you can make that call. But again, like I said, we are in a precarious situation, and it's only the mainstream media that can bring sanity, because we are having social media, we have all that freedom, people can put everything, and now we realize that actually your breaking news, you get clips from the social media, and some of those clips are uncensored. So you see someone, we are talking about nationhood, that's what you're preaching, but at the same time, we are bringing in people who are talking about Wiluyas. We are talking about Wilwars. Honestly, you have the power to make that not happen. So I think what we need to do, we need to help Kenyans. You are Kenyans. Mainstream media practitioners are Kenyans themselves. You vote as a matter of fact. And you go down there, you also experience the leadership challenges that people are experiencing. However, when it comes to now reporting, to informing, you behave as if you are outsiders, and now you are addressing Kenyans. If people are going to sleep on empty stomach, you also sleep on empty stomach. If Kenya is going to burn, you're also going to be affected.
Burn in the process.
Why can't you also, if the people said, we are one, we are one nation. Like I loved what happened when sorry to say this, but the so-called Pangani 6 and what happened. I mean, if you read the mood, and probably David Ohito will say, of Kenyans all over in social media, social platform, they were saying they should stay there. We don't want hate speech. We don't want to go back where we were in 2007. But you media, after that, you invite them here. They're talking how it was cool, how it was what here. What are you doing? At one point, you want to sell to get money, but you need to ask yourself, do Kenyans want to buy your product? So I don't know.
All right, David Ohito,
like
thank God, as she is speaking, you have not yet quit. So when she's talking about you media, you're included until you, and like ODM, until we get your resignation letter, will not, they've said they'll not recognize it. Do you agree that possibly we have distanced ourselves as though we're not part of the conversation?
Very true. I think I have a very good student. When you see John Anderson, a Norwegian, being appointed CEO of Kenya Airports Authority, it tells you that something is wrong. Out of 45 million Kenyans, we cannot find one of our own in a time that Kenyans are serving incredible international institutions much better than Kenya Airports Authority. There's something absolutely wrong with our society. And we must sit back and reflect, where do we want to go?
So what do you say is wrong with our society? Is it leadership? Is it we, the ones who are supposed to be taking the jobs? Is it that there is a certain cartel that can only have those jobs? What is the problem?
It's part of the cartels, part of looking ourselves at the